Are we shared to Facebook as well, Christine?
Working on it right now.
Let me know.
Mike, you can start when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and call the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order September 8th, 2020, 6 p.m. In attendance is myself, Mike Ergo, First Selectman, Nita Kincaid, Selectwoman, Bob Carlson, Selectman, and Christine Dias, Admin Finance for the town. Just as a reminder, we're thankful for everyone who's come to the meeting, who's joining us on the phone or on Zoom. We offer the opportunity for public comments on non-agenda items first on our agenda, and then we'll allow comments on each agenda item as we go through the agenda. We ask that all comments are limited to 2 minutes in respect for everyone's time, and that all questions are directed to me. With that being said, the first item on the agenda is public comments on non-agenda items. So if you do have a public comment on anything, as we go through the agenda, you simply have to hit the participant button and raise your hand, and we would recognize you. If you are on the phone, I think it's *6 to unmute yourself, and that would be fine too. So with that being said, going twice for public comment on non-agenda items.
Mike?
Yes.
Can I be can we, towards the end of this, talk about the way to vote next week?
The what?
The way to vote next week.
So why don't we go, why don't you go ahead and make a motion to add agenda item number 12A or something, just so we can talk about it?
I move that we add item 12A to discuss the vote procedures next Monday.
Second that.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, that agenda item's been added. So moving on then to item number 3, which is Center for Emergency Services project closeout. You do have a letter in your packet from the chairman of the committee, who is also on the call. So I don't know, Christine, I know you spoke with Carl in advance. How do you want to handle this one?
I'm gonna click the allow to talk button. Carl, I don't know if you want to just read the letter, if you have anything additional that you want to add to it, and if anyone has financial questions, I can ask them.
Carl, welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Yeah, Christine, if you want to read that, and then I think we're all right.
Okay, so, Selectmen, the Center for Emergency Services Building Committee has fulfilled their mission with the completion of the Center for Emergency Services and Storage Building. The project was approved not to exceed $6,360,000 and came in under budget. The town financed $4,798,768 through the USDA for a 20-year term, received $300,000 in grant funding through the Department of Economic Community Development, received $12,479.50 from Eversource for an energy credit, and paid $1,161,568 through redemption of debt on the project for a total of $6,272,815.50. The total cost of the project was $6,249,005.73. This leaves $23,809.77 in the project account to be sent as a principal payment to the USDA. Please see the attached report for a breakdown of expenses for the project. We thank you for the opportunity to serve the community through our participation on this committee.
Thank you, Christine, for reading that. Carl, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thanks for all the other members, Ryan Burdick, Robert Boisevane, or I'm sorry, Robert Shabunia, and Charlie Steinhardt that I finished with. And I'm sure there was 1,000 others people that were in it in the last few years. The tail end of it here, we kind of trimmed a little bit off, I think, and we got everything else done. Hopefully everybody's happy with it, and I was glad to help out. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Do the selectmen have any questions or comments?
I have no questions.
No questions and congratulations.
Carl, thank you to you and the team. I know we've kind of haven't had to meet in quite a while, or just sporadically as we finished up here with the 3-bay at the end side of this. But you guys were really awesome, and thank you for stepping up as chair when Ryan had to step aside there. It's a quite an accomplishment for the town. So, if you see everybody, pass along our thanks and congratulations. And I know they've been in there for a while, but still worthy of celebration that we can close it out like this and under budget. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
We do have one hand up, so I'll see if there's public comment on this agenda item. And Joe Gross, you are recognized.
Yeah, at present, we have a committee that's been looking at having a sign put up on Route 2 in the corner of Route 2 and Rocky Hollow, identifying what's in the emergency service buildings. And right now, we have the fire department and we have the ambulance building in there. And the committee has been getting details on what the sign would look like and what the price would be. And I've talked to Juliet and I mentioned it to Chris some, and it didn't come to you, nothing, because I wanted to go to Chris and then get to you because this was still an open item. But we feel that it's got to be in the works. Nobody really knows what's in the building, but right on that corner down in there should be a building, and it'd be something similar to the signs we have coming into town, like we have a board that says North Stonington Fire Department, North Stonington Ambulance. And it did have a stone columns on there holding it up, and on top it'd be a little thing. But right now it's in the process of being designed, and then the guy in Groton is going to get an estimate on approximately what the cost would be. And being of the town building and all that, we felt that it was a town that would be paying for it. But if you close this, then I guess that would close that sign down. And I would hope it would be able to leave us continue to present it to you.
I mean, I think the starting place for that, Joe, is planning land use. So you guys are in the right spot talking to Juliet there, and we'll kind of defer to her on going from there. But appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
Oh, yes, I didn't get that far because we wanted to put it all together before we gave to you because we knew it was still, the project was open. And of course, where it goes and all that has to be reviewed. But we did go through Juliet and the thing where it's in the residential sign area and all that, she's taking care of that for it. But of course, nothing done until I get that whole thing so we can present the whole thing to you, what it would look like. And then any modifications that would have to be done. But that's been in the works for about 3 weeks now. So if we can continue, I appreciate it, but if not, we'll just hold that part up as far as the town.
I think, yeah, talking to Juliet and seeing where it's at as far as monies, I mean, I think it's time to close the project out. So I don't, I'm not saying that if it's something that moves forward, it's certainly something we can take up unless the selectmen don't want to close the project out tonight. Thank you for your comment, Joe, and the selectmen will discuss that.
Okay.
Thank you. Really what we probably would want to do based on this report is to motion to accept the closeout presented by the committee chairman. So that way Board of Finance can also recognize the closeout as well. What's your pleasure?
I'll motion to close out the project.
Second.
Further discussion?
I understand where Joe's coming from on that, but I think there's probably other ways to finance that sign. So my feeling is that this project's done. We should put it behind us and move on. So
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I don't think that was something that was part of the plan, so people would probably take exception to that, but certainly not closed-minded to it. If it's something planning and zoning feels is appropriate, we can certainly take that up potentially, separately. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 300. Next item. We got a letter from the Volunteer Fire Company requesting a change in the way we distribute their funds to them. We did invite the president, Kyle Burgle, to join the call, who is the one who authored the letter or sent the letter to us. We pay that we distribute their funding on a quarterly basis currently. I didn't know if, just because it was addressed to the selectmen, wanted to make sure we brought it before the selectmen to make you aware of this request. Yeah, I don't know if you guys take any issue with it or have any questions about it. I don't see, I don't think, unless Kyle is on the call and wants to raise his hand to be recognized, I'm not sure that I see his number there.
So Mike,
Questions?
it's not something that the select, what was that? So it's not something that the select would normally get involved in. I wasn't familiar, we did it quarterly until you just said so. So I guess unless someone else with more knowledge on it than I have has an issue with it, then I don't have an issue with it.
Christine, you want to weigh in on it?
So they're asking for us to change from checks to ACH and from quarterly to twice a year. We currently do the distribution for the ambulance association through ACH, so I see no issues with that. I have no issue with doing this, but since we've started the year with quarterly payments, we'll have to do quarterly for the second quarter, and then the payment for the second half of the year, we can just do as one disbursement instead of quarters 3 and 4. But I see no issue with this from a cash flow perspective, so.
So it doesn't affect our cash flow at all, you're thinking?
No, realistically, I don't think that it does. Depending on if there's a special situation with anything, say the budget hadn't passed at the beginning of the year, we would hold their capital expenses anyway because we wouldn't be funding any capital until the budget's approved. So I don't really see anything that would prevent us from being able to do this.
Is most of their expense in the first half of the year or second half, or is it pretty evenly divided?
The only big things that they have up front is they pay their insurance in August, so that's always the beginning of the year that comes out. But other than that, most of it is equally dispersed between the 4 payments.
So that's already been done, correct?
Yep.
So the third and fourth quarters typically aren't that busy as far as payouts.
No, we typically as a town, we don't front load that many things to begin with. So right now our cash flow is looking fair. As long as things are on target with the January payments, we should be fine.
So since we're starting this into the almost the second quarter of the year, why couldn't we approve this starting with the fiscal year of 2021, 2022? Why are we, or 2021 rather, why are we doing it now?
We can absolutely wait. There's no urgency, I don't think, from the fire company to switch it this way. I think they just had a meeting and came up with the request.
So my opinion would be to continue with the 4 quarters this year, and then in the next fiscal year, do a semi-annual payment if that's what they'd like.
Sounds fine.
I like that idea too. I do. We don't really know exactly where we're totally at yet this year.
Right.
All right, so I don't know if there's any it's not normally something we would take up here. We can draft a letter and send, just respond to them that we are happy to accommodate this starting in the 2022 budget cycle. All right,
I'm good with that.
Mhm.
okay, great. So item 5, the equality and inclusion conversation update. So we did do a survey to see what the interest was from the community on future conversations. As for the benefit of anyone who isn't aware, we had a nice conversation on equality and inclusion with 4 panelists from the community, which was kind of spurred from the protest that had happened a month or so back, or whenever it was now. And it was a really enlightening and really almost like, I would say, a healing conversation for most. 2 things. The first thing is as long as the selectmen don't oppose to it, the participants were all agreed that we could publish the conversation, which we haven't done. So basically it was recorded on YouTube, and we haven't published it to YouTube because in respect for all of the panelists, but they have all been asked and all agreed that they would be comfortable with it being shared. They all felt like it was a really valuable conversation, and they don't have any problem with that at all. I do think we started recording it just a little bit late. So it might not be, I think just maybe my comments are not there, and possibly one of the first 1 or 2 panelists' introductory comments are not there. But we can certainly mention that when we post it. So that was the first thing to talk about, is if you see any problem with posting that. And then the second thing was that it does seem to me that based on some of the feedback, that another one of these, possibly more of these, would be helpful for the community, and that we could go through and try to recruit some folks who would be interested through a few different ways of trying to get more participation from community members who would like to be a part of a conversation like that. So just wanted to kind of have some discussion with the selectmen about those 2 items.
Mike, I already said something to Christine about this. I've read this now 2 or 3 times. It's the most difficult thing to read in the world. So if we're going to try to do more of this stuff, I really wouldn't like to see it go out like this.
Well, actually, you're just seeing a terrible import of the answers in your email. It actually was very easy to read and very easy to take, but I'm reading it on the responses, and it's not very easy to read in the way that it was distributed to you guys. So I apologize for that. We can do a better job of sending it to you next time.
Instead of spending a half hour, you could go through this pretty quickly, and I've gone through it twice now, and I think that I think it would have been nice to know how many of the people who were involved with this were whether the 4 people who were doing it, or is this all the people, just the people that saw it online, or how did they get the information?
So on the survey, we did a survey. We announced during the discussion that we were going to do a survey. And then after that, we publicized it through a news and announcement blast. And also, I believe in my weekly update that we had released a survey, and we put a link to the survey. So the folks that that responded were people that had an interest in responding, whether or not some of them were participants in the discussion. I'm not sure. I can resend this to you in a better format though, Nita, so it's more readable. I apologize that it was sent like this to you.
You can send it to me, Mike. That'd be great, because I had trouble with it also.
Thank
I will
you.
send it to both of you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, I'll send it in a better format. Regardless of how difficult it is to read, I guess the point is that it seems to me that there's more opportunity for more conversations in the community about these topics.
I agree.
I agree too, but how do you think it relates to this other document that we're going to talk about next?
Well, I think let's hear the discussion from Jen, who's going to be on the line to talk to us from Legislate about that. And we can talk about how it may relate. So we're in agreement that another conversation can take place, at least one more, and we'll see where it goes. And I'll publicize that now that you guys are in agreement with that. Do you agree about that we should post the recording as the participants have agreed to?
If they agreed to, I think
Allow us
it's a
to do.
great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that you should do that, yes.
Okay.
And Mike, if we're out of COVID next spring, it'd be nice to have a community conversation on this topic, whether it be out on the second floor of the Real Library or in the school building or where we're having to be, just when we can get back together again. There's enough to it and there's enough importance to it that we could do a community conversation, I think.
Mhm. Mike, now, when you say we could have another one, this is something that you've already talked to Denise about, and she is willing to do it, and she's going to be the one that's going to consider the whole process.
Yes, I spoke with Denise about it, who was the facilitator of the last one, which we all agreed did a phenomenal job. And she, yes, she thought it would be, she and I agreed that based on the feedback, it would be worthy of another, who knows, we may end up doing several of these, but it seems like it's worth it. And I think it's a really, just a positive and proactive way to continue to talk about this stuff. And it shows that we care, because we do care about these issues and that we're doing something as a town about it. So.
And I think, Mike, the big thing is to continually talk about it and not let it die. So many things get started and then they fall off the end of the world. So even if it's just something quarterly that we bring up and refresh, it's just something we have to do, I think.
And
I agree, Bob.
We can use the quarterly that's going to come out at the beginning of October, and we can put something in there about it if Denise wants to give us something to put in there.
That's a great idea. I can ask her. I guess they are separate agenda items. So number 5 on the equality inclusion conversation update. Are there any comments on that item, agenda item, which is number 5?
We liked it. We like to have it again. And we'll be happy.
Mike, you were talking to the public, right?
I was asking the public.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Sorry.
Sorry.
You had your time.
Sorry, Nita. I'm sorry. I should have differentiated. I just wanted to move on to agenda item 6, but I don't want to skip the public comment. So not seeing no public comment on 5, we'll move to number 6. Is that okay? Nita and Bob?
I'm good with that. Yep.
Okay. And we do have Jen Muggio from Legislate Health District with us. And so the next item is to talk about this resolution, public health emergency resolution on racism. And this is something that I've actually been getting emails from some people about, and this is something that has happened in other communities. And so Jen, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this call this morning. I mean, this evening. Where am I? And I think you've now gotten to know Bob and Nita and Christine. And we're happy to have you here. And maybe you could talk a little bit about this initiative as well as the resolution, and just tell us about your experiences with this and how you think we might be of service.
Great. Thanks so much for having me tonight. So Legislate participates as one of the lead agencies on the Health Improvement Collaborative of Southeastern Connecticut, which is also co-led by Yale New Haven Health System, L&M Hospital, TVCCA, a number of other community partners. And every year we do a comprehensive community health assessment, which includes looking at both data related to health outcomes from hospital records and Department of Public Health records, but also primary data related to the results of a phone survey of residents throughout our region, and focus groups of residents throughout our region. And we publish our community health assessment. And then we craft our community health improvement plan in response. So our last community health assessment was published in the fall of 2019. And as in our previous document, we identified in numerous health outcomes where there are inequities, disproportionate rates of disease or illness, when we look at those rates as borne by Black residents, Hispanic residents. And in addition to looking at disease outcomes, we also look at those contributing factors to health. So yes, a person's health outcome, their genetics play into that, their health behaviors play into that, but more their access to healthcare play into that. But more than that, are these things that we refer to as the social determinants of health. So whether the person has consistent and well-paying employment, whether they have healthy and stable housing, whether they have access to affordable and healthy food, transportation, all of those things that we don't typically think of as impacting health, they actually impact our health outcomes much more than our genetics or our health behaviors. And we see those racial inequalities also in all of those things. And so our health improvement plan of the fall of 2019 included not only specific actions framed around looking at certain disease outcomes, but also on how we develop and deepen and broaden our capacity in our region to address racism as a public health issue. Because within each of those social determinants of health, we see the impacts of systemic racism. And only by naming that, addressing that, dismantling it, and creating something that is just and equitable and liberating, are we actually going to achieve community health in a holistic sense for everyone in our region. And so this is something we've been working on with some intention for over a year now. In the spring, and as the data related to COVID outcomes began to be published and receive some heightened attention, because those same health inequities appeared in the COVID data. We saw Black residents suffering more severe health outcomes related to a COVID diagnosis, higher rates of death among Black residents and Hispanic residents. And there was a movement started by an organization, a statewide group called Health Equity Solutions, to help towns and cities in Connecticut name racism as a public health concern. And we've worked as a coordinating team of the Health Improvement Collaborative to put some language to a resolution, which the City of New London took up about a month ago. And that I've shared that language with you in this document for your consideration. I think that I certainly encourage any town that's considering doing this to make it feel real for your town and your structures and your residents, so that it's not something that feels, or yeah, we're, you know, on the this is the topic of the month, this is the thing to do, but something that feels meaningful for your town. And so I'll stop for a second and answer any questions I can answer, or go into anything I just said in a little more detail.
I know Mayor Passero from New London spoke a little bit about this at one of our Council of Government meetings recently, and I know the council is all the communities are kind of looking at this, and I've gotten, as I said, a couple of emails from folks advocating for something like this. So do the selectmen have questions initially, or discussion or whatnot? Go ahead, Bob.
So I liked towards the end, Jen, where you mentioned about the individual towns can tailor this towards the town. Because when I read this, I'm like, oh my God, this was written about somebody, and don't forget, I'm not so naive to think there's not racism in North Stonington, don't get me wrong. But some of the stuff was just hitting me over the head where it doesn't come into play as much maybe with us as some other towns. But I think that we still have to have something tailored for our town. But I think if the average person in North Stonington read this, the first thought would be, this isn't about me. Where it may be, but it's such a big waterfall of negativity or positive, depending on how you look at it, that they would brush it up as saying this doesn't apply. So I guess if we tailored it towards some of the things that happen in our town that people may not know about, small issues that might happen at the schools, in the school system or on the athletic field or wherever they may happen. I mean, when the part that said addressing and dismantling racism for the focus of how it affects the delivery of town services. I mean, I would hate to think that our town services aren't delivered in a very equitable fashion. So yes, if we could tailor this more towards our town, I think it's a great idea. I just think that this, as written, would be brushed off as this doesn't apply to me and thrown off to the side. So thank you for that tailoring part. I wasn't sure we could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually took some sample language from Health Equity Solutions and tailored it for New London. And, you know, Mike and I had a very brief email conversation about this at the end of last week. So I did just share that language with the name of the town replaced, and would encourage you to give some thought to what feels particular. I also really appreciate that you had that conversation that you just talked about and are looking to have additional conversations. And I think that when you're thinking about what a resolution in North Stonington would look like, a lot of times when people are thinking or talking about racism, we get very focused on what are individually mediated acts of bigotry, right? And I think it's really important when we're having community conversations, when we're creating space to listen, actively listen in a safe space to people about their lived experience, about how moving through our world is for them, regardless of our intention of the systems and the policies that we've created, how those things land for them, and how a particular interaction might have occurred for them. And that is an important part of this discussion. It's also really important for us to recognize and deepen our understanding of that the racism, structural racism, is about a power balance that has permeated its way throughout our society and throughout our systems for the last 400 years. And it's not, it's about individual interactions, and it's also about our systems. And I'm certainly not calling out your zoning policies. I'm speaking more broadly. Zoning policies in Connecticut have been a focus of a lot of discussions recently, because they do, in some towns, contribute to the segregation that we see in our state, and how there are some towns that are predominantly white and some towns where there's a concentration of people of color. And that is the kind of the latest iteration of what was redlining and what was covenants of homeowners associations that, you know, the deed said this house can't be sold to a Black person. And so it's about really recognizing all of the places where systemic racism and this power imbalance shows up. And not only within our individual towns, but within our region and within policies and practices that come out of the state and federal government. If we can be actively advocating for more equitable policies and practices at that level, it's not just about what happens at the level of our town governments, right? And so I very much encourage you to think about how this becomes real in your town, and I'm really happy to continue to provide some support with that, and also to keep this idea of it being about these big systems in mind, and that each of us as individuals, no matter where we live, are players in those systems. We have voices with our policymakers, and there's opportunity for action at so many different levels.
Nita, do you have any comments on any of this?
Well, when I went through it the first time, to be honest with you, I thought more than 50% of people in town would not read this, or, I mean, it would be, I think, a hard thing to start anything with this as this type of thing as the way to lead into it. So I think that we'd have to think a lot about that. I think it actually could work very well with this thing that Mike has started with Denise. It could build out of this, I think. But I think that people around here don't even think, maybe I'm crazy. I've only been here 25 years, but I don't hear people talking about racism at all, period. They talk about, it's very easy for people to talk about Black lives and things like that, but we don't even have too many people that do that, I don't think. Maybe they think it. But I think if we worked with the concept that you're trying to bring across here, because our town may not stay this way forever, and I think we are getting a lot of new people now. We are getting quite a number of young people, and I know you can look around and you don't think we have many people that are of a different race, but I think have quite a lot of them. In fact, remember when we first went into office, the Indians who still live in this area and are certainly a different race and very uncomfortable and unhappy about some of those things. And we tried to help a little bit, but we didn't get very far, I don't think. But anyway, so I'm fine with working on something like this, but I don't think we could approach it with this kind of a document. This is my feeling.
I think that you guys both make really good points, and actually maybe what we could do, to your points, is as part of the next conversation, because Denise had some questions that she had gone over with the panelists, and perhaps we could add one of the questions is, what does a resolution look like to you in North Stonington as it relates to equality and inclusion, and then maybe out of that we can draw some points to write our own that reflects our community a little bit better.
Yeah. I think that's
Yeah.
Connecting it with that effort and making it something that reflects the voices of those neighbors that you have engaged with, it makes so much sense. It helps it to feel so much more real than a performative thing that this is what everybody's doing around the state right now.
Art, I would say also, we have to, meaning the three of us and everybody else who works in that, our town is changing. Our town, when we came here 25 years ago, had many, many people who were older and very, set in what they were doing. And the town is beginning to get much more new blood and all of that. So we have to be ready for that. Most of us have been in places where we know what it's like for that. But I think that, this is something we should think about. I hate using the word racism, I think. I almost hate using it.
We've tried to, and in our meetings, we've gone to inclusion and equality, which, trying to be more, I guess, on the positive side, but recognizing, racism is a very real thing and something where, to me, the thought of anyone not feeling welcome in the community is just heartbreaking. And I know that you guys feel the same way about it. So in our role, for us to take this up, I think is great. And so I think as far as action, nothing. I would say let's take it to the next conversation with people, and and let's see what we get out of that first one, and then maybe we take it up after that first community conversation again and say, okay, here's some modifications. How do we feel about it? And so not something to just. I think your point's well taken, Jen. Not something to just pass just because everybody else is doing it. Let's put some real thought behind it and make it meaningful to our community. So,
well, it would certainly be okay for her to come to the next one of those meetings when we have it. Don't you think?
Yeah, that'd be great.
The honor to.
That'd be great, Jen. We'll keep you in the loop when the next one is. We'll make sure we reach out. So is there any other comments? I do see a hand up. Do the selectmen have anything else before I go to public comment? All right, let's see. I see Joe Gross. Joe, you are recognized.
Thank you again. I want to thank Bob for his comments in our community. You expressed my feelings also, which I haven't been able to read the documents that you have. And Anita, I think you've given some great comments too. I think a lot of this issue hasn't been in our town. I believe that the youth that's coming into our town doesn't see any of this type of racism. This is in a separate little group type thing, and I think that's where the towns will see it in, but I've never seen it into this town like that. But I thank you both for your comments, and you've read the article, I haven't, but you expressed some of my views. Thank you again.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Any other public comment on this topic? Okay. So seeing none, I will talk with Denise, and we will not forget about this topic. We'll bring it up after the next community conversation that's held probably within the next few weeks, and we'll address it again then. Jen, thank you for being on this call and going through this with us. We really appreciate it. You want to hang out for one more second? I don't think there's anything new, but my agenda item number 7 is also of Ledgelight's interest, and that's Triple E update, which I had it on the agenda just in case there was anything to report. And really the only thing to report as of last week was there was no new pools found. There's really nothing new to report, just the one in Stonington a while back. So that's all I have on that, unless, Jen, there's something that I don't know.
Nope, fingers crossed it stays that way. We've certainly all got enough on our plates right now.
We do. All right, well, with that, thank you, Jen, for being here, and we're going to move on to agenda item number 8.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. If there's no public comment on 7. Right, seeing none. So the next 2 are really kind of just discussions to kind of see where we go with it. Number 8 is the village concerns discussion, and as you are both aware, one of the residents, Gary and Nino, had done a survey of residents based on their feedback as to their concerns for the village as it relates to safety and ideas for potential improvement and things of that nature. And so the thought process, I think after receiving the results of his survey, was to have a joint meeting with the, any members of the public, of course, that would like to attend, the Selectmen and the Historic Village Improvement Committee, probably with the predominant agenda item to look at that survey and discuss potential ideas for improvement. And I just wanted to first take it up with the Selectmen before doing that. And if you're in agreement with that, what we'll do is we'll ask the Historic Village Improvement Committee for a joint meeting, and of course let Gary know so he can alert the residents to the discussion as well. Does that sound like a good plan of attack?
Yeah, I think that it is. I will tell you that I think that we have a real increase in vehicles in general near the village or anything like that, with regards to people want something to do. I mean, Babcock Road is all sorts of things all day long. That usually happens only once a year when it's the fair and everybody is going back and forth from the fair. Everybody has, various bikes, not bicycle bikes, basically a lot of noise, a lot of everything. Yeah. It's not just in the village. I don't know if you get it in where you are, Mike, but we're just in that spot. I think 25 miles an hour in the village is too much. I don't know why we ever ended up with 25 miles an hour, to be honest with you.
So again, I think those are things that we should probably talk about with the group so we can just hash it out and have some really greater discussions with people about it and include as many people as are interested in talking about it so we can come up with a consensus on action if we're able to get to one. Bob?
No, I think I mentioned in the last meeting, it's important on an issue like this to speak to those people that live it every day. They live in the village. They're the ones with their kids playing in the yard and the dogs running in the streets, and the ones that are walking at night at dusk, and sometimes they feel they probably take their life in their hands. So I think it'd be good to have a meeting discussion. I purposely drive 25 or less in the village, and I love it when I get 2 or 3 cars behind me wondering why I'm not moving my butt a little faster, but I refuse to drive faster than that. So I think 25 is acceptable. It is a town road, but it's 25 is pretty slow. I think that's fine, but we'll see what the feedback is from the villages. They're the ones that in that survey talked about speed humps that allow you to go up to 25. So whatever they say.
Well, I think it'll be a healthy discussion. So, and it'll probably take a little bit of discussing. So it may be something where we do maybe a special meeting prior to one of our meetings, or if we have a late agenda, we could just take it up as our meeting topic. But I would expect that it'll be something that takes a good hour at least to talk about. So, all right. So if that's fine, then what we'll do is I'll talk with Juliet and we'll reach out to the Historic Village Improvement Committee and also back to Gary, and we'll schedule a meeting with them. And we had in the past been they were joining us at the first meeting of the month. So just looking at the calendar, we'll see when they're available and try to get that done sooner than later.
Okay. Route 2 part of this same thing?
This is second. No, this is different. I wanted to talk with you guys about this. So this is something that has been discussed in the past, but not by us and not for a while. And that is the idea of sidewalks on Route 2, and maybe not on both sides of the road, maybe just one sidewalk, but we have had fatalities on Route 2. It's not a town road, but before I went through the exercise of starting a conversation with DOT and really everybody that would need to be involved in a conversation like that. I wanted to make sure that you guys were not opposed to me pursuing that. I personally would like to see a sidewalk. I'd love to see one from Holly Green down to the Rotary. You know, I think there's a lot of people that do walk, and I just get scared every time I see them walking on Route 2. And of course, we've got businesses there that could benefit. We've got, you know, there's families, you know, I see people pushing their strollers, you know, down to Hewitt Farm, which, you know, of course, we got the grass there, which is helpful. And then people just go into the convenience store or whatever. So I just wanted to really get an affirmation from the board that you aren't in opposition to me pursuing the possibility of this. And believe me, there's a long road on this. This is not something that's going to happen. It may not ever happen, but at least to try, you know, to try to work on it. So I wanted to get your opinions on it. What are your opinions?
I have no opposition. I don't know about the Rotary, but maybe Holly Green at least down to Jake's, something like that. But I mean, from there to the Rotary, there's not much except for the Dunkin' Donuts, I guess. But anyway, yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I think it's, as you said, it's going to be take a while to get all your T's crossed and your I's dotted. But just picture in my mind as you were saying it, driving down Route 2 and having the sidewalk on one side seems like a logical thing to do if it's in the cards, if the money's available without the taxpayers having to ante up for it. We do it through grants or with the state. But that'll all come out, I guess, in the investigating and how it gets done. So,
Mike, when we did this walk wasn't last year, it was the year before, wasn't it? Or
Walk audit, yeah, that was actually no, that was last year.
Last year.
Yeah, it was last year.
Anyway, we picked that area and we walked along there, and it was really looked like it could be very doable, and people are using it, but they have to go in and out, and you know, so I think it's something we should try, very much so.
And there's definitely, I mean, it's state roads, so it would be a state project, and it'd be, you know, not something the town should have to pay anything for. There's grant monies that are available for, you know, the town has to be involved in trying to apply for it and whatnot. But so, all right, so I will start that conversation to see, you know, what the viability of something like that would be. I see a hand up, and I inadvertently skipped over number 8 for comments. So if anybody has comments on 8 or 9, feel free. I see Joe Gross with your hand up. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Mike, I appreciate it. On the item on item 8, the village concerns, I think I have a big concern with that too. It is the way we have it now. I agree with the concerns that they had, the 25-mile speed limit. So years ago, we had Mike Thomas, who was the commander of Troop B, attended one of our meetings, and we had a problem with the speeding through there. He recommended that them speed limits be dropped down to 15 miles an hour, then he could do something about it. But this has been discussed very numerously. My main concern is the sidewalks on Route 2. The years I've been here with the fatalities I've had on that road, the accidents, which do not include fatalities, all we got to do is put a couple more sidewalks with people walking there. And I'm just afraid that there's going to be so much increase in fatalities. But I understand what you just said. I just want to give you my feelings toward it. With nobody on there, we've still had fatalities with people walking on that road without it. We've had a fatality with a person riding a bicycle with dark clothes. It shouldn't have been on there. And with the people speeding on that road, there's very few that do 45. That the accidents that we have with them going up into ledges, off the roads and so forth, if it would bring another individual walking into that accident, I just think we're increasing the things for so many fatalities. But I understand your concern, but that's the way I feel on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Seeing no other blue hands, I'd like to move on to agenda item number 10, which is the John Dean Gallup House feasibility study RFQ. So this is the grant money that we had received to do the feasibility study on what to do with the John Dean Gallup House. And so I know we're all anxious to rent it out, and we were very happy that we got the painting done just a couple of months ago. And so we feel that, just to refresh everyone who may not be aware of this, and I know Hewitt Farm took this up, and our grant writer had put this together and helped us get the grant, which is free money for us to do this feasibility study. And what it'll do is it'll help the town identify the potential uses for this building. And so rather than get somebody in there, which we could do certainly within a couple of weeks, if or a month or something, we're going to put we want to put an expedited return on this project, so that way we can get the results of it and then move forward on who or what entity goes into this building. And so this is very planful, and it's really fortunate of us to be able to have gotten this grant to be able to put this together. So with that, what we'd like to do, if the selectmen are in favor, is put this RFQ out and just work on this accelerated process to get an architect to put a proposal together for us that will give us very, very clear direction on what we feel this property should be utilized for in our community, in this really important area for our community, which is, as Bill Rickers says, the Central Park of North Stonington. So any questions or comments on the RFQ for the John Dean Gallup House feasibility study?
I defer to Anita, whatever she has to say.
I'm very happy with everything that you did say. And I think the one thing that we need to do is get together to make sure that we disperse the RFQ solidly enough that we have some options to choose who's going to be that person that's going to help us bring this together. I think that's very, very important.
I agree. We want to get it out there. So I think we should get it. We'll have to get it out to some of our partner organizations for them to distribute, CERC, sector, maybe if the chambers have architectural firms who are members. Obviously, there's state sites we can put it on.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, Nita. It's really important to get it well circulated.
Yeah, and I think that I was pleased to see in here that from the point that we get the person, it's a very short amount of time that is left for him the person, the she or the he, to work on this, because we're giving them a lot of material to begin with.
And I think we want to get somebody in there by the winter, whatever the entity is, and we don't want it to be vacant for the winter. And certainly, entities or people or whatever, people move all year long, so there's no reason that won't happen. So really gives us some data to back up the decision we're making. So I'm pretty excited about it. All right, so I'd look for a motion to approve the RFQ as presented.
You have to do it, Bob, because I'm.
Oh, okay, so I motion to approve the RFQ as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Further discussion? Hang on, we've got a comment. We should have gone to public comment beforehand. So if it's okay, I'll just allow public comment before we vote. I see Brian Rathman has his hand up. Brian?
Yeah, so you're thinking of having a feasibility study. Do you have any idea how long that would take? Would it be months or, because I heard you just say that you'd like to rent it out before winter, which is a great idea. And my second question on that would be, is the town going to have a vote on that, or is that just going to be something that the selectmen decide, or the Hewitt committee decides, or what's going to be done with the house? Because I thought, well, my understanding of the whole Hewitt property, the town would have a say in the different things that go on there.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the feasibility study back and hopefully get to some decision within a month and a half or so, I think is what it asked for, but it'll come back up at another meeting to discuss future steps, Brian. So you'll be in the loop.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no more hands, I had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 300. Next item is number 11, the current ethics policy for the town. So this has been brought up by a couple of times by a Board of Finance member requesting asking us, I think, to implement an ethics policy, which we have an ethics policy for the town. So I just wanted to make sure we went on record to review it, and also to see if the selectmen would like to see any further action or anything with regards to the code of ethics that the town has. I can read the code of ethics. Yes, go ahead, Bob.
I just think, do you know what year it was written, Mike?
2010.
When?
2010.
2010.
2010. The only reason I say that because, all right, so 2010, we're probably kind of the infancy of social media. And we've had an issue with a Zoom meeting earlier in the year with some vulgarity at a meeting. I think there's people that post. I think this is about financial gain by an elected official, whether it be him, his spouse, his family member. And I think this is important as a part of the overall ethics, but I think the ethics has to be broadened. I don't think this covers enough anymore. I think we should have ethics with elected officials and how they act, what they say, what they do. Not infringing on freedom of speech by any means, but just a way that you comport yourself in a meeting, the way that you act. I just think there should be more to this, and I'd be willing to look at, maybe we should look at codes of ethics in other towns and see how they're handling it. Maybe something's been written in 2019 by the town of Woodstock, who knows? But just to see how somebody else has handled it, because I think there's a lot more to it. This is very important, the piece that we have. And maybe in 2010, this is what most people just considered, but I think that things have changed now. I think there's other things that have to be considered. I don't think this is a broad enough policy to live with moving forward.
I agree. I think it's worth looking at it and thinking about it.
I think I'm going to take over the next few days, maybe over the weekend, to just see if I can post them up in some neighboring smaller type towns like ours, and just see how they handled it. Maybe they didn't, but I think that, someone said every great idea has already been had. It's just a matter of you borrowing one from here that every once in a while. So
Bob, you're willing to do some research on this, and we can report back on it on next meeting or the one after that, or?
The next meeting is what, in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can be back by then. Okay.
Great. Well, I appreciate you stepping up to do that, and I don't disagree. We could certainly elaborate on this a little bit more. And I think, distributing it and probably distributing it on even an annual basis with reviewing at like our old boards and commissions meetings. And also we do a yearly FOI training with all boards. And the more we can get this out to everyone that it's top of mind, the better, especially if we do a better job of putting more information in it to help. I think that's great. So
I think the day that you get sworn in, you should be handed one of these.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that if we do any changes, we will have to vote on it at town meeting.
Well, that's fine.
Just process, that's all.
So it's not something that has to be done right now, but if we work on it now and have it prepared, so in the event that we do have a town meeting someday again, we'll have something we can put on the agenda.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Bob. Any comments, questions from the public? Okay. Number 12, town success metrics discussion. So this, I just wanted to talk about how, one of the things that's come up, I meet with Christine and Juliet. We meet weekly or bi-weekly on, with our leadership team, which is the three of us. And, some things have come up about, we talk about implementation of certain things, and we work hard towards making things happen. I'll just use, for instance, for an example, I'll use the affordable housing on Winnetonka as an example. How much time, effort, energy, resources went into the Winnetonka property from our affordable housing committee, from planning and zoning. Money was spent, and then ultimately, and we've identified affordable housing as something like in our POCD, but then it failed. And so then we're on a path based on what we thought was defined as success, yet it failed. And so it's okay. I think the thing about it is we want to be able to define success properly so that way no one is spinning their wheels in the wrong direction. So I think that was part of how we wanted to talk about this with you guys, because I think we were talking about trying to do a survey of some sort. Obviously the POCD is coming up again in a couple of years, which is great because that's a great opportunity for us to recheck the pulse of the community. Obviously you already talked about that we've just got changing demographics in town, but we need to, as we're setting priorities, especially for our budget, like next year, for instance, we want to make sure we budget and we do things that align with what we define success as in the town. And so I wanted to first talk with you guys about it. And then the thought of is, do we look at a survey, or Christine, am I missing anything on this?
So one of the things that we had talked about was whether it's something that we should put a survey out, or if it's something that we should go to all the different boards and commissions and have them look specifically at what success looks like to planning and zoning, what success looks like for the Board of Finance, what it looks like for the different commissions, so that it can help us be more planful in what we're trying to do. Because as Mike said, we're putting a lot of not just financial, but also time resources into things, and we want to make sure that we're doing what the town wants us to do and we're on the right track. It goes hand in hand with the strategic plan and trying to figure out, we have these 6 goals and we're trying to do things to align ourselves and meet the goals. But if those aren't the goals anymore, then we need to shift to make sure that we're all viewing success the same way.
So really just wanted to have just kind of a general discussion with the selectmen about this. And if you had any feedback as leadership, as me, Christine, and Juliet, trying to move some of this forward to give us some good data as we kind of look to, building budgets for next year and making sure we're funding things that help us to achieve the successes that we're striving for. So, Bob, Nita, comments?
I would just say in general that as a town leader and in office in a small town like ours, there's always a cry for the citizen, the taxpayer, to have a voice because of the type of government we have. So I think sometimes it leads to disappointment because you think that as leaders, we're doing the best thing we can do. We've done the investigating. We've crossed the T's and dotted the I's and came up with what we think is a good plan, only to have it fail when it goes to a town vote or a town meeting. So I think it's unfortunate and fortunate, but it's the kind of town politics that we deal with. I know you'd like to say, Mike, to clean them up. You'd like to put us on a better path of maybe a higher success rate, or the not spending of monies, and then finding out that the town really didn't want to move in that direction, or at least the vocal part of the town didn't want to move in that direction. So I don't think it's a thing that, and I'm not going to call it a problem. I'm just going to say it's something that's unique to small towns, that you don't know if we'll ever get away from it totally. I think you just have to keep doing what you think is best. But again, we hear, so in a bigger city, obviously the people, there's a lot of people that don't pay attention. In big cities, they just go about their lives, business moving, everything's moving so fast, and the leaders make all the decisions. In a smaller town, people take the time to learn, or to at least think they've learned about a situation. Sometimes they speak and they don't have all the facts, but in their mind, that's the way they feel. So I just think it's kind of how things go in small towns. We could get better, and I think what you're talking about is something that could maybe fine tune it a bit. But I don't think there'll ever be a time when the leaders of the town think they're doing something that's moving in the right direction, only to find out that the town, I'm going to say the whole town, but the vocal part of the town, whoever that may be on some particular item, say no or yes. So I don't know. I guess what I just said is kind of frustrating in itself, because it makes you feel like that you have a good idea. I'm just saying, but it's never going to change. I'm not saying it's not going to change. It can get cleaned up and fine tuned, but we have to appreciate that where we work and where we try to lead is in this type of a town. I tell you right now, if I lived in another town, I won't mention town names, but if I lived in a bigger town, a busier town, there's no way I would have been in politics ever. I would have just went about my life, and whatever get dealt out to me, get dealt out to me. You know, in a small town, you feel like you have a voice, and I think that's how we all became to where we are today as selectmen. We started out in smaller meetings and smaller groups, and next thing you know, one thing led to another, and here we are. So that's my feeling about it.
Okay. Nina, do you have any comments on the?
Yes, my feeling is that sometimes, and I don't mean this to sound negative, but sometimes it's important that when you're working with the team that we really love, Christine and Juliet and everything, that the sooner that the other two of us can get information so that we're aware of what's going on, then we can all help together to make this happen. And sometimes that just doesn't happen because you have to go quickly on things. So that's one thing that I think we could improve upon, so that we would know. I mean, I think this has been a very good meeting tonight, because we put things out here that we know are going to come up now, and we can help make them work, hopefully. So the more we do that, I would be very happy about that, just in our role. I think that the town is changing, and I do think another part of this is we really need to find ways, and it's been really bad now because of the COVID problem, for all these new people to get to know us and be part of the town too. And that's something, as soon as we can, we ought to try and pick up on in some way. Those are just a couple of things I'm thinking about.
Okay. Well, that's good feedback. I appreciate it. Is there any public comment on it, Joe? Go ahead, Joe.
I want to comment again, Bob. I got to comment. You put it about, express it the way it is in town. I think our problem is communications. That if you could ever break that communication with that certain group, you'd be all right. A prime example: the board selectmen wanted to do a project before. I didn't understand it. I was dead against you guys. I went down. I talked to Chris and Sue. They changed my mind. They explained it, so I understood. And damn it, I went with them, but we lost the whole vote. So it's a question of, if people want to be ignorant, they're going to be ignorant. They're the ones that hurt us in the long run. But how do we communicate? If you guys could solve that, I think that'd be the greatest thing going. But it's tough to communication in this small town is there. But Bob, I agree with you. I'm one of the nice guys in town that you're going to meet, but I'm going to be vocal. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Joe. Go ahead, Bob.
Joe, I just saw on that communication part, I think you realize that when we first became selectmen, I think one of the first things that Mike brought up was, and we formed, was a communication committee. We understood that communication in this town is a very tough thing to do. And if we could figure out how to do it, that'd be great. again, like we had the communication committee, then we thought that was gonna go well and started out pretty good, but then people fell off and then there was a time where we really didn't need and then communicated and, it's tough to get everybody back together again. So, yeah, if someone has a great idea on how to communicate in a small town, please let us know, because I agree with you. I think that's one of the biggest downfalls in a small town is just that, and, you know how you communicate in this town, word of mouth and by gossip and innuendo and I heard my friend told me this, and then misinformation gets out, right? So we're not communicating the proper information. So I think that, and I don't think social media is always the best way to go. So we've tried that, and so if someone out there can figure out how to communicate in a small town, but we as a group of selectmen identified that. I think it was in the first 2 months we were on board. Mike put together a communications committee, and I wish it would have worked a little better, but I agree with you.
I mean, I think one of, we just did as part of our Sustainable CT initiative, we actually wrote out all of the ways in which we are communicating. So my opinion is a little bit different. We've never communicated. I mean, I've only been here for 12 years, so I can't really speak to never, but I feel communication is about as good as it's probably ever been. But I think, Bob, you hit the nail on the head. We can never fix the misinformation or the disinformation or the gossip that is just continues to perpetuate and make things very cloudy for people. As much as we put the information out there through so many different channels, and I should share with you the many channels. That was pretty interesting to see all the ways that we actually have implemented communication, especially over the last our tenure. It's been pretty extensive. So I guess to me, this topic was more about not communicating to people, but getting communication from people to understand what success looks like to the townspeople, but in a way that gives us just a little bit of data as we look to budget next year. Because I mean, we're going to do the POCD, which is really that's the golden ticket. That is what we need to do to kind of rewrite the direction of the town. It's really, really important. But I understand all of what we've talked about tonight. It still doesn't change the fact that the town doesn't like, rightfully, nor do I, like to waste time, energy, and money. And when we go down a path that ultimately results in a failure of something that we've spent all of those resources on, it's waste. That's not what we want. We don't want waste. We want to move in a direction that's more in line with. So I think maybe, Nita, you probably hit it a little bit more too, is that trying to have better discussions about things as we go along. That doesn't fall on deaf ears. So we'll certainly try to do a better job of that. I feel like you're right. This meeting was, some of that. And I found myself even with, on one or two of these things where I actually probably normally would have just maybe moved on it because it didn't seem like something that mattered, to bring it here to make sure that I'm not getting a phone call. Why are we doing this? So it's a tough dance because, and the board is an oversight board really, and it's my job to really do, to make sure that the town is running. So we're trying to make a balance here, and then of course balancing the townspeople's opinions and everything as well, so we have success and we have less stress, which is always good. So, we have a couple more comments before we move on. I'll take comment from 7108, last phone number. You haven't made a comment yet. I don't know who that is. You're recognized though. Just have to unmute. Last digit 7108. Just have to unmute your line. Stars. Yep, there you go.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Mike. It's Caroline Howell.
Hi,
So
Caroline.
how are you?
Great.
I just wanted to comment on a couple things. I was driving around town the other day and I noticed several of the homes that had, signs with Wheeler graduates posted in their yards now have for sale signs and sale pending. So when you talk about the POCD and planning for the future of our town, I think it's really important to really keep in mind, although our demographics are changing, that we need to really be aware of the people in the town who are committed to living here, who aren't just here because their husband is, or wife is working at a job for a few years and they're in the area, or their children are just coming here for school and then they're going to be leaving. I mean, we have a lot of people in town who have lived here their whole lives and they're struggling to make ends meet, and there's a reason why they chose to stay here. So I mean, I think everyone wants to see progress, but I also think we need to be really careful not to, overtax ourselves for the people that really would like to stay, that don't want to have to sell and move. And the other thing that I just like to comment on is I realize that there's a lot more communication going on right now, which I think is a good thing. But unfortunately, I also see that a lot of the communication is one-sided, where things are posted and people are not allowed to comment or clarify if the information is not completely accurate. And also, I do notice that sometimes the articles that are in the newspapers it's not just, providing a story with both sides of the story and all the facts. It's more like a news announcement where the information is just what, a certain person might want to put out there. So as a taxpayer and as somebody in town who tries to keep track of what's going on, I would appreciate it if we could get information out in the newspapers more so that it does get to the people that don't necessarily participate on social media or even on these Zoom calls because they don't have the technology or the means to do it. I just think that you're missing a whole bunch of people in our town that should be informed that aren't getting informed. And so thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Carolyn. I've been personally trying to write more press releases as my time allows because there's just no reporters, especially at the day. The sun is a little bit better, but thank you for your comment. And I see Joe, do you have your another comment, Joe? Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, I think Carolyn just gave you a good example of some of the communication maybe that we need in that. But I don't get frustrated. You guys got to continue doing, you do the best job. And when you do lose something, it's not that it's the best decision that the town has made in there. I mean, I appreciate what you guys are doing, although I don't express it all the time, Mike. A good example is look how many times it's taken me to teach you that it's not Mike's way, it's Joe's way. So I continue to support you, board. So don't let down on it. And Carolyn gave you some good self-talk. Again, I'm off tonight. I got to leave. Thank you. And I think you had a good meeting.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Joe. Just because this is discussed as part of what we're talking about, let me just do a quick, I pulled this up just so you can see it. Can you see my screen of the communications inventory? It's an Excel spreadsheet. You see that?
Oh, that's nice.
I mean, this just shows you everything
Excellent.
that we're doing to communicate. I mean, we're doing a lot to push information out there. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys so you see, this is just another thing that was part of our work that we did for the, this is just one small piece of the work we did for the Sustainable CT submission. But, we're doing a lot. So, we can do better though. So, all right. Thank you for that discussion. We had agenda item 12A that was added.
We have a hand.
There's a hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking about as far as communication goes. Of course, you know, I go to a lot of the Zoom meetings and everything, and I hear what's going on. And sometimes I think, like Carolyn was saying, you know, if there's the new ones that moved into town, the young people, you know, and they're bringing in their new ideas, which is fine and all. But it's the elderly that don't seem to be able to get their communication back, you know, back. And that's where I think gets lost. You know, it's like on this agenda here, you know, where you have about, well, just for an example, for the racism thing, is that something the whole town wanted on there, or is just, you know, is that, you know, I'm not sure how everything gets on there, but if you got the opinion of everybody in town here, good, you know, I mean, not just young ones, but old ones too. I mean, I look at the budget, it's usually, most of the time it's an argument, not an argument, but a discussion about the school kids. But you don't hear a lot of discussion about the elderly, the ones that lived here for a long time. And you don't see that going up. So the town's still split. It's going to be split for a long time. I don't know how to bring it back, but one thing I think we got to do is get it either how the people can let you know if we're on the right track. You know what I mean?
I do. That's why we had this agenda item. So we are going to brainstorm that. And thank you for your comment, Brian. We will continue to think about that one. All right. So number 12A, with regards to the vote, getting the word out. Is that what you want to talk about, Nita?
Well, I mean, somebody had already asked me, are we going to have the outside area like we had for the, well, we're going to have it this Monday coming, right? Are we going to have for this one, the voting outside of the school? The car driving up?
So I can talk about a couple of the changes we're doing from the primary for this vote.
Right.
So we are making sure that we have signage for the curbside voting, which is I think what Nita's.
And let me just interrupt for 1 sec, Christine. So curbside voting is meant for people that have a difficulty walking up.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I make that clarity, because although people are certainly, you know, maybe concerned about the COVID-19, that is not the purpose of curbside voting. You know, we don't have that much ability to have that much curbside voting. We don't have that much staff. So we are encouraging folks to just, you know, either absentee vote or wear your masks. So go ahead, Christine. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's okay. So we are having a sign for where you pull in for curbside voting, as well as a sign to delineate where you pull in for, I think we're going to call it walk-up voting or walk-in voting, to just make sure people understand where they're pulling in, which driveways for which scenario. We've communicated that there should be parking closer to the school. Because we know, you know, some people need to use it for other reasons, but we will make sure that there's as much parking as we can closer to the buildings. This is the regular reasoning for absentee voting. So if somebody needs to get an absentee ballot, they have to come into the town clerk's office to pick up the ballot application. There is no mailing of absentee ballots because of the short time frame that we have with this referendum. So we just want to make sure that everybody understands that it is still an option, but you have to make sure that you come in ahead of time, and there is no mailing. Trying to think if there's any other changes and again, I want to reiterate, this vote is from 12 to 8. So it is 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. So it is not a 14-hour vote.
So where are we going to put that information? I know that you've been already working towards that on when you do your weekly thing, Mike, and would you put that level of detail in the?
Yes, Mike had that in his weekly update last week. We had
I don't think he had the curbside stuff in there.
We might have. The ad ran in both the Day and the Westerly Sun today,
Yeah,
to publicize it,
And
so.
that's the paid ad. And then we also did a press, I was able to get press coverage for the vote in both newspapers as well. We probably should, go ahead. What?
We just need to make sure that we are only providing impartial information, that's all.
Yeah, that's all we did. It was just an announcement about the vote. So
I mean,
we,
moving forward, if anything new that we talk about tonight.
oh, yes, certainly. We're just talking about yes, thank you, Christine. We probably should do a Facebook event for the vote, probably. I don't think we've done that, so folks can,
that would be good.
I can do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
okay.
Is there any place where we could put up a few of the signs that are, would we be putting something out in front of the town hall to send people there?
I was gonna ask the Please Vote Today team to put out their signs like we do like Sunday night, in the locations around town. So those signs that say please vote today, but they put them out usually the night before, and that way they're visible on Monday.
Yeah.
But trying to get the word out ahead of time is always, we're trying, because the thing is, I know some people will see the please vote today sign and they'll say, what are we voting about? What is this all about? And I mean, although again, we've tried, listen, it's either you want to be informed or you don't a lot of the time. We're trying. I mean, we're doing, so if you guys have other suggestions, I'm happy to do whatever it is that you feel is helpful.
All right. Thank you.
Do you have any comments on it?
Anita covered pretty much whatever I was going to talk about, so no, I'm good.
Okay. Moving on to any comments for the public? Great. Moving on to number 13, minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start doing some motions. So I motion to approve the Board of Selectmen special meeting minutes on August 21st, 2020, as submitted by Christine.
Second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. I motion that we approve the minutes about the Board of Selectmen meeting on August 25th, 2020, as submitted by Christine.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Lastly, I motion that we approve the Board of Selectmen special meeting minutes of August 31st, 2020, as submitted by Christine.
I had actually only one question in that one, which is the adjournment motion by Selectman Carlson to adjourn at 7:34, and then second by Selectman, but there was never anything there that said that we voted 3-0-0.
I never do that.
Oh, okay.
For some reason, they never.
Okay, that's then fine. That's okay. Forget that.
I can start doing moving forward, but I never do that.
Okay. Yes, second, anything.
Yeah, probably should reflect the vote, although, yeah. Okay. Moving forward, if that's fine. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
I vote
Further
yes.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Good meeting. Appreciate it.
Thank
It
you.
was a good meeting. Thank you. Thank you.